ride a river over
Hello everyone, and welcome. I hope my connection is sufficiently good, because I'm not sure. My OBS is telling me it's cutting. So, welcome and happy new week for everyone. Today, as always, we have a couple of articles to read and maybe comment. Who knows? First one in line is: you don't just think about politics, you physically feel it in your body. Physically feel it in your body. Where else one can physically feel if not in the body? But okay. Let's see, this is one. And the second one is: using physics equations to map memory distortions. That sounds interesting as well, but let's start with politics. Why not, right? Every day, new thing in politics that shocks us. So, let's see what happens in our body with the news. A recent study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences suggests that political emotions are not just abstract thoughts, but are distinctly felt physical experiences that shape democratic engagement. Physical experiences, body feelings, and behavior. The relation between physical experiences and behavior, democratic engagement specifically. The research provides evidence that people feel politically driven emotions differently in their bodies compared to everyday emotions. Okay, it's a new set of emotions. These physical sensations reliably predict whether someone will actually participate in political actions like voting or protesting. Wow! Scientists recognize that emotions drive political engagement and public division. Yet, the way people physically experience these feelings remains mostly unexplored in political science. Typically, political emotions are measured by asking people to rate their feelings on a simple numerical scale. This approach treats emotions as detached mental states. Every time we think something, we feel something, and we have a body reaction as well, chemical body reaction, and a behavior, or the absence of it. That is always a behavior, because we cannot not communicate. Let's continue. When people feel an emotion, they experience interoceptive states, which are the brain's internal perceptions of signals from inside the body, because we can focus our attention to the outside world, the senses, the five senses, and to our inside world, that is to say, our thoughts, our feelings and emotions, our body sensations. And our body sensations, mainly. Like a racing heart or a tense stomach. The mythical cortisol spike, that is so in vogue. The researchers wanted to map these self-aware physical feelings, known as somatosensory experiences, to see what a state of political anger or political hope actually feels like in the human body. Andrea Vick, a postdoctoral research fellow at the Centre for the Politics of Feelings at Royal Holloway and the School of Advanced Study, University of London, helped lead the research. She explained how her academic background inspired the project. It really started during my master's when I took a political psychology course with Dr. Bert Baker at the University of Amsterdam, and I became hooked on the question of how emotions shape political behavior. Vick told SciPost. Yes, this article is by the SciPost. At the same time, I was fascinated by the body's role in all of this. What our physiology can tell us that self-reports can't. Cool. Then, Professor Manos Tsakiris, who leads the Centre for the Politics of Feelings and is the senior author on this paper. It's amazing that such a center exists for politics of feelings. Politics of feelings. Wow. And is the senior author on this paper, introduced me to the EM Body tool, a body mapping method, and things clicked into place. EM Body tool. That's the tool, apparently. Understanding these bodily sensations can shed light on how political contexts alter basic psychological responses. This might explain a lot of things lately in political world. To explore these physical patterns, the researchers conducted a study with 992 adult participants from the United States. The sample was designed to be nationally representative in terms of age, gender, ethnicity, and political party affiliation. The median age of the participants was 46 years. And the group included exactly 50% women. The scientists used a validated digital mapping technique called the EM Body tool to measure physical reactions. During the experiment, participants viewed digital silhouettes of the human body and used a coloring tool to indicate exactly where they felt physical sensations. They painted regions red to show increased activation, such as warmth or tension, and they used blue to show decreased activation, such as numbness or physical heaviness. First, the participants completed this mapping task for 5 every day. For 5? Again, I don't understand this sentence. First, the participants completed this mapping task for 5 every day. 5 times per day? I don't know. Non-political emotions, which included anger, anxiety, depression, disgust, and hope, Later in the study, participants repeated the exact same mapping process for the political versions of these 5 emotions. For the political emotions, participants were asked to choose a contemporary political issue from a list that personally made them feel the specific emotion before coloring the body silhouette. They also rated the overall intensity of their emotional response on a numerical scale from 0 to 100. The body maps revealed that adding a political context to an emotion changes how the emotion is physically experienced. For instance, everyday depression tends to cause a sensation of numbness or reduced activation in the arms and legs. Political depression, in contrast, showed a much more widespread pattern of physical activation across the whole body. Wow, very different. Political disgust also produced an entirely different physical map compared to everyday disgust. Everyday disgust, such as the natural physical reaction to spoiled food, tends to be felt heavily in the stomach and throat. When participants mapped political disgust, the physical sensation looked remarkably similar to anger, with high activation concentrated in the head and upper body. Vick noted that these findings stood out during the analysis. In this project, we only pre-registered our research questions because we had no strong predictions about whether politics would alter the embodied signature of an emotion. Either direction, political emotions being similar or different, would have been meaningful, she said. So, I was struck by just how much the political context changed how emotions are embodied. Wow, particularly how disgust shifts away from something like straightforward pathogen avoidance, such as a reaction to something physically repulsive, and towards something closer to moral outrage. Vick continued. That shift matters, I think, because it suggests that political context doesn't just intensify or weaken your emotions, it can fundamentally transform what kind of emotional experience you are having. Anger, anxiety, depression, disgust, hope, political and non-political. Anger, very similar. Anxiety as well. Depression, starting to see the difference. What is black? Black is nothing? I guess. Blue is numbness. Okay, let's continue. Other emotions showed more subtle changes or remained largely similar to their everyday counterparts. Political hope produced weaker physical activation than everyday hope. Weaker political hope produced weaker physical activation than everyday hope. Okay, that explains a lot. Possibly because political hope is mixed with adversarial feelings toward political opponents. Political anxiety was generally similar to everyday anxiety, but featured slightly less sensation in the stomach area, leaning more toward mental vigilance. Ooh, interesting. So political anxiety was similar, but less sensation in the stomach area. Huh? Yes, the yellow part. The scientists also looked at how individual political differences influenced these physical sensations. Political party affiliation altered the physical experience of these emotions. That is interesting as well. I wanna see the graphics. Do we have it? No, we don't have it. How convenient. Oh, I lost. Political party affiliation altered the physical experience of these emotions. Democrat-leaning participants reported stronger bodily sensations for negative political emotions compared to Republican-leaning participants. For political anger, anxiety, depression, and disgust, Democrat-leaning individuals showed much higher physical activation, primarily concentrated in the head and upper torso. So Democrats always more intense, we can say? When examining how these physical feelings impact real-world behavior, the researchers found a strong link to democratic participation. What? The physical intensity and physical spread of a political emotion across the body reliably predicted whether a person engaged in real political activities. Wow! These activities include voting in elections, signing petitions, posting online advocacy messages, or attending public protests. Or other kind of reunions, of course, I guess. Interestingly, the physical intensity of political emotion did not predict affective polarization. What is that? Affective polarization refers to the intense emotional dislike or distrust of people belonging to an opposing political party. This suggests that the physical urge of a political emotion drives people toward taking civic action rather than simply disliking the opposing side. I hope it gives people a moment to reflect on how their emotions are embodied and how politics shapes that. Vic said, we tend to think of political emotions as something we can simply rate. How angry are you on a scale of 1 to 10? But emotions are so much more than a number. They are felt and lived through the body. The butterflies in your stomach, the tension in your chest, the weight in your limbs, Vic added. What we find is that politics changes those bodily experiences of anger, anxiety, disgust, and hope. And it may be that embodied experiences, not the number someone gives on a survey, that actually moves people to participate. Our bodies, it turns out, are part of our politics too. Wow, beautiful. While the study provides extensive evidence regarding how we physically feel politics, the authors acknowledge several boundaries to their findings. The research relies on a cross-sectional design, meaning the data was collected at a single point in time. Because of this, the scientists cannot definitively prove that the physical sensation of an emotion directly causes political action. Vic emphasized the need for measured interpretations of the results. I want to be careful not to overstate the effects. This is an initial study, and the findings should be read as such, Vic said. There are some important limitations to our study. Achieving true equivalence in emotional intensity across political and non-political conditions is inherently difficult. The US context may represent a particularly strong case given the salience of partisan identity. What is the salience of partisan identity? And establishing causal direction will require longitudinal designs. but it would rather readers see those as directions than deal breakers. But I'd rather readers see those as directions than deal breakers. Okay. Yes, a very good starting point. Despite these cautions, the researchers said that understanding physical emotional responses could reshape political science. Wow. The practical significance, I think, is real, Vic said. If political emotions are embodied, and if that embodiment shapes political behavior in ways that self-reported intensity does not capture, it has genuine implications for how we study political emotions going forward. I didn't know that a political emotion studies existed. Very, very niche. If political participation depends partly on how politics is felt in the body, then inequalities in that felt experience. Who gets to feel it? Who has learned not to? Whose embodied responses have been suppressed or diminished are not just personal. They are political, she added. They shape who acts and whose voices are heard. Democracy may depend less on what people think than on what they are able to feel. Wow. The concept of ideological bodies is one area where the authors urge caution. Ideological bodies. The finding I think is most vulnerable to misinterpretation is what we call ideological bodies, the pattern where Democrat-leaning participants reported stronger and more widespread bodily sensations than Republican-leaning participants for negative political emotions, Vic said. Some might read this as suggesting that one group is more emotional and therefore less rational. Yes, I'm sorry, but yes, that is true. That is what I was assuming. A notion that has long been debunked, but stubbornly persists. I want. How? Embodying emotions more or less says nothing about your rationality or moral character. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. So, rationality and moral. I think there are studies, recent studies, but I don't want to get into that. What it reflects is that political worldviews are potentially lived not just in how we think, but in how we feel the world from the inside. She continued, here our case selection and study design also matter. Partisan divides might be especially stark in the US, yes, more than other countries for sure, because there are two parties only. And at the time of data collection, Democrats were electoral losers. So we don't know how these findings hold up in other contexts. That's very honest and clever to identify. Looking ahead, the research team plans to expand their focus to different demographics and societal issues. The very concrete next steps are a project on how young men experience relative deprivation, i.e., the feeling that their group is unfairly worse off than others in their bodies, and the consequences that this has for violent extremism, Vic said. Wow. My long-term goal is to build a fuller picture of how political emotions live in both the brain and the body, and how that shapes our politics. I would love to see that knowledge used in ways that are relevant for evidence-based communication, analysis, and policy. Whether that's building emotional resilience in populations, resilience to radicalization, or knowledge resilience to combat misinformation. Wow, I like that. And perhaps, most of all, I hope it can contribute in some way to societies that are better able to channel emotions and frustrations constructively into participation rather than disenchantment, and into something positive both for individuals and for our democracies. Bravo! Wow, a lot of related articles. We're gonna make a series of that. Political Emotions, the series. How are we doing with the time? 11 o'clock a.m. 11:01 a.m. Monday, 25th of May. Let's continue with this one. Using physics equations to map memory distortion. From neuroscience.com or neurosciencenews.com, sorry. Ready to go. Experts at Newcastle University have received 1.2 million from a UK research and innovation cross-council grant to explore how emotional events influence the order and precision of what we remember Okay, it sounds like the other article for a minute for me for a second. So that's why I was laughing. So emotional events influence the order and precision. Okay. This is a grant to explore how emotional events influence the order and precision of what we remember. Okay, it's very related, I think. Like two connected articles. Fantastic. And with mathematics. The project, Quantum Emotions, will investigate a core puzzle of everyday life, such as when we look back on emotional experiences, why do some moments feel sharp while others slip out of place? Yes, I think it's intensity. What I know is that the intensity, no matter it's a good intensity feeling or a bad intensity feeling, but in the intensity of the experience make you recall better. But I'm not sure, because when it's too bad at of an experience, when it's too bad, we erase it, right? Because it's too hard to remember. So I don't know. That's my general knowledge about that. So, why some memories feel sharp and others don't? Understanding emotional memory. Temporal order is what gives our memories structure and creates the narrative of our lives. Yet, emotions can change how we store and retrieve that order, leading to distortions that are often difficult to predict or explain. Temporal order is what gives us... But I already read that, yes? Yes, sorry. Dr. John T. Hans, head of the quantum group at Newcastle University, said, "This is an exciting opportunity to use ideas from quantum theory to model systems outside of physics, like emotional memory, where the order of events really matters." Whoa! Newcastle University researchers will apply mathematical tools normally used in quantum physics. Quantum formalism is uniquely suited to situations where the order of events affect the outcome, a feature shared with human memory. quantum formalism. Okay. By using these methods, the team aims to model complex memory behaviors that traditional psychological frameworks cannot easily capture. Again, by using these methods, the team aims to model complex memory behaviors that traditional psychological frameworks cannot easily capture. Okay, that sounds better. Their work will explore both the behavioral patterns and the neural systems involved when emotions alter how memories are formed. When emotions alter how memories are formed, retrieved, and sequenced. As part of the grant, the experts will host workshops and events to build a national network of researchers in quantum cognition. Whoa! These activities aim to spark collaboration, train new researchers in this emerging field, and support future large-scale funding bids. Money, money, money. The team will combine insights from multiple fields such as psychology, cognitive neuroscience, quantum theory, and memory science. Advancing memory science. Dr. Barbara Ann Robertson, lecturer in Newcastle University's School of Psychology and leading the Quantum Emotions Project, said, "We are thrilled to receive this prestigious UKRI grant, which places Newcastle University at the heart of the rapidly growing field of quantum cognition." Through collaborations with world-leading experts in Japan and Sweden, we will develop quantum models to explore how emotions shape the organization of our memories. This funding will allow us to create new tools for understanding emotional memory with potential applications in aging, mental health, and the criminal justice system. It sounds more like an advertiser than an article, but question answers. Does this research mean the human brain is actually a biological quantum computer? Oh, not necessarily. The Quantum Emotions Project isn't trying to prove that your brain tissue contains physical quantum particles. Instead, it is exploiting the genius of quantum mathematics in classical physics the order in which things happen doesn't change the baseline facts, but in quantum physics and in a human memory, changing the sequence completely alters the reality. So it's a mathematical application. Scientists, but we know about microtubules and their quantum vibrations or something like that. So there's a field that studies that. Scientists are using physics equations as a superior mathematical mirror to capture complex, irregular human thoughts that standard logic cannot compute. Why do our brains randomly make some emotional memories hyper-sharp and scramble the order of others? That is the exact million-dollar puzzle this grant was designed to solve. So we don't know. When you go through an intense emotional event, your survival-driven brain chemistry floods your storage systems, altering how precision and timing are recoded. Yeah, we know in an accident, car accident for example, most people experience these seconds like in slow motion. While classical tracking can tell us that a memory is distorted, the Newcastle team is using quantum models to predict exactly how and why specific moments stay beautifully crisp, while the surrounding timeline slides completely out of place. Yeah, apparently this is just an announcement. We don't have too much sauce here. We're gonna have to find out more by ourselves with the help of Grok. How can physics equation help a lawyer cross-examining a witness in a courtroom? Ooh, human memory is currently the most fragile piece of evidence in the criminal justice system, especially during high stress, emotional crimes. A witness might perfectly remember a weapon, sharp precision, but completely scramble the timeline of who entered a room first. Warped temporal order. By building tools that mathematically map how trauma reshapes chronological recall. Wow! This project can help forensic psychologists accurately assess the reliability of eyewitness statements, ensuring trials are guided by objective cognitive science. Cool! I have to find more about these two subjects because I really like them. Okay, thank you very much. That's all for today. So, thank you very much again and see you the next one. Have a nice week. Or Monday, start of the week, I mean. Goodbye.